What's going on, you guys? My name's Ty Knots and welcome to Top 5 Unknowns, 5 back-to-school horror stories. Number 5. Today is my last day at home before going back to school, so my mom decided to take my best friend and I out shopping. While I looked at bras, my best friend decided to look at a shirt that had caught her eye. A minute after she rounded the corner, she came back with a man closely following behind her. I assumed that she knew this guy somehow since she hangs out with some pretty weird people, so I started talking to him. His first words to me were, "Sorry, I'm foaming at the mouth. I can't control my saliva around pretty girls." He proceeded to ask for our names, numbers, and addresses, and asked if there was anyone out shopping with us. Trying to be nice so that he didn't freak out, I gave him a fake name and told him that we were from out of state, shopping with our boyfriends. He told me that it had beautiful eyes and grabbed my best friend's face so that he could see hers too. While staring at her, he said, "She has prettier eyes. I would love to take her home so that I could take them away." At this point, I asked him to leave and was causing such a fuss that my mother then came back over. Now, my mom is normally a calm, funny woman, but in this moment, she turned into a protective mama bear. She came walking over and asked him who he was. He asked if she was my grandma and said that he wanted to take her granddaughter home and violate her. She yelled for security and told him to step away from us, and told him to leave the store before she changed her mind about letting him leave unscathed. I hate to think about what might have happened to me and my friend if we were alone or if my mom hadn't intervened. So, guy who foams at the mouth and lusts for eyeballs in the lingerie section, let's not meet again, especially in front of my mom. Number 4. I'm a 17-year-old female and go to a small school with small classes. Now, there are way more guys, especially in my class, but I don't mind because I get along with them pretty well. Unfortunately, though, not all the guys are as chill as my friends, as this tale will tell. There were about 10 students in class this day, and we were supposed to have gym in a separate building opposite from the school. Because the class is so small, I'm often the only girl in gym class, which means I have the locker room to myself, but that doesn't stop me from locking the door. Even though the boys' locker room is on the opposite side of the building and there's no risk of them entering, I simply feel safer when the door is locked. After gym class was over, I was changing back into my normal clothes by myself when the door handle started jiggling, but it didn't open because I made sure to lock it earlier. I stopped and stayed quiet for a moment to listen to see if anyone was there. Maybe a teacher wanted to ask something or something like that, but no one said a thing and I simply heard light shuffling behind the door. I finished changing and carefully opened the door with my key in hand in case things were about to go down and I needed to be ready. When I walked out of the room, I saw a teacher scolding a group of 4 guys I'd never seen before, and he was telling them to leave immediately. I hastily walked past them and ran back to school. Turns out, as I'm sure you guessed, they were trying to break in to either see me naked or possibly do something much worse. Luckily, I never had to find out what they specifically had in mind, and the situation never presented itself again. Still, it's awful to think what may have happened if I hadn't locked that door. Number 3. This encounter happened last May. I'm a college student who goes to school about 3.5 hours away from home. One weekend, 2 friends and I are heading back to school late on a Sunday evening. We started out at around 10 but had some setbacks, so we were way behind schedule. It was midnight, we were low on gas and still had several hours to go. Exhausted, we stopped at a gas station, which was, in retrospect, sketchy as hell. One of the other girls and I went inside for coffee while the girl who was driving then pumped gas. As we were standing in line, 4 guys in their early 20s came in wearing animal masks. I thought I was about to witness a robbery at first, but money wasn't their target. They grabbed a few beers and got in line behind us. Then the creepy part started. They began making pig noises and getting very, very close to us. So close that I had to lean back in order to avoid brushing up against one's chest. They asked us if we thought they bit, told us we were sexy, and asked if we wanted to go out with them. My friend and I looked at each other, utterly terrified and creeped out. The only other person in the building was a tiny checkout girl who looked just as nervous as we were. Though this story ends rather anticlimactically, thank goodness. We paid for our coffee, dashed out the door, and were gone before they could even get in their car. I have no idea where they came from, as this gas station was out in the middle of nowhere, nor why they were wearing animal masks. The whole situation was way too weird for my taste, but thankfully we made it out safely. Number 2. To keep it brief, when I was 17, my family and I lived in a small town in Australia. We moved into a relatively isolated neighborhood, but about 50 to 100 meters next door lived a single old lady. When moving in, she seemed nice enough and introduced herself. She always seemed a tad bit nosy and asked a lot of questions, but I just wrote it off as being a lonely old woman. She seemed extremely sweet, or so I thought. One day on school holiday, I was home alone and making a sandwich in the kitchen. I looked out the window and over to her property, and through her bedroom window I thought I saw her figure in the distance. But it was too hard to tell. For some creepy reason, I got my binoculars and looked over. I focused them and my heart sank into my chest. My mouth dried and my legs shook with shock as I realized she was staring directly at me. After a few seconds, she made a massive grin on her face. I shut the blinds, told my parents about what happened, but they played it off, saying that I must have not seen it properly. But that's not the creepy part. The night before we were set to move away, I finished playing around on my PC before going to bed. I awoke to rustling sounds outside. I got freaked out when I realized that it wasn't merely the house creaking. With frozen courage, I peeked out the blinds ever so slightly, and right there she was. I made eye contact with the old lady directly outside of my window. My body froze and she started quietly laughing, not moving her gaze at all. I shut the blinds, panicked, and shouted for my parents. The three of us searched outside but found nothing. My dad then confronted her the following day, but she acted like the phony, sweet old lady with dementia again. Thank God we moved the next day. I still have paranoia and trouble sleeping at night as well as bad dreams. I try to justify it as mental illness or dementia, but it still scares me even though I'm 22. I just imagine one day the same old lady outside of my window even though I've moved clean across the country. Number 1. I'm 22 years old now, and this happened back when I was 5. Even though it was so long ago, I can remember it very vividly. My older brother and I had just been dropped off at our bus stop by the school bus after school. We lived in a shifty trailer park in Virginia. All the other kids had parents waiting for them at the bus stop, but my brother and I didn't. Our mother never knew or cared about where we were, unfortunately. So we stayed around the bus stop playing with sticks and the other kids, and the bus eventually drove away. Well, a few minutes passed with us playing with our sticks when we hear a man's voice say, "Hey." We look up and there's an old blue truck in front of us in the road. The man inside says, "I'm looking for my dog. Have you seen him?" Me being a very big animal-loving kid, I was immediately captured by the fact that a dog could be lost. I told him no, that we hadn't seen the dog, and the man said, "Oh, well maybe you could come help me look for him so that I could find him." I, for some reason, was never coached on stranger danger. So I began walking around the front of the truck to get in the passenger side, when all of a sudden my arm was yanked very hard by my brother, who screamed, "Run." He then pulled me and we ran all the way down the side of the road and hid behind a dumpster. The old truck immediately sped off as soon as my brother made us run away. A man with no bad intentions wouldn't have had any need to speed away. If my brother wasn't there that day, I would have absolutely gotten into that car and surely never have been seen again. We waited a few minutes behind the dumpster and then ran the rest of the way home. Talk about a close call. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to click that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep updated with our videos.